What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another live stream. And oh boy, today I'm here with my very good friend, Matt Stauffer. Here we go. Matt, thank you so much for allowing me to literally stream this event today. I know that you have been doing Laravel podcasting since forever, but truly feels good to have you, man. So, yeah, excited about this, man. Excited about streaming the whole situation and excited to see what people think about what is a Laravel podcast behind the scenes.
I love it. And I did Twitch live stream and YouTube live stream for Laravel years and years and years ago. And so it's kind of fun being on the other side here. Seeing just kind of, and we'll talk this in the podcast, but obviously just seeing where you've taken it. It's definitely a different world than it was back then. So
What are you
it'll be
saying,
fun
dude?
to
You
see.
are like the OG of streaming, man. I still remember you like streaming on YouTube, like literally a Laravel app. So if someone have started this, it was you, man. That was awesome.
I'm honored. Is there anything you want to do on your side before I just get started with what I would do for a normal beginning of podcast?
No, like I'm ready. Like I'm streaming. I have my notes here. So for those at
Okay.
home, I actually prepare every single interview I give. So I have the answers up front, almost every single answer I'm going to give. So that works that way. That's it. I'm ready.
Okay. Are you going to be responding to chat at all? Because if so, I want to give the podcast folks notice.
I don't think I will be. I won't be talking to the chat. So if I do it,
Okay.
will be after the interview. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
Just
So then
just
we're going to go
just
through.
1 second, if you don't mind. Let me just set up the voice here real quick. The chat is saying that my voice is low. Chat is Nuno, your voice is good. Can you turn it a little bit up? Okay, it's Matt voice. Here we go.
Okay.
I'm gonna make it a little bit higher. Chat, let me
I'll
know
talk.
if
I'll
Matt's
talk. I'll
voice
talk,
is a
and
little
then I'll
bit better. Here we go.
exactly. Let me know.
Right, should
I
be
guess I
good.
should keep talking so they can. Okay. Cool. Well,
Should
if
be
they
good.
give any notes, just let me know.
Yep.
Okay. So to Nuno and everyone else gets to listen. And the way this works is I have a little script, and it is about 3 lines. And the script that I read says, "Welcome back to Laravel Podcast Season 7. I'm your host, blah, blah, blah. Today I'm talking to Nuno Maduro. What is your role, your official role at Laravel?"
Well, I think I'm a software engineer that works for
Okay.
Laravel, kind of a little bit one of the very first. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm during the years I've worked in multiple projects, Vapor and Forge, but now my role is software engineer working on Laravel Cloud. That's what am I doing at the
Okay.
moment.
So I will say software engineer at Laravel, comma, working on Laravel Cloud.
Yep.
And then I'll say, Nuno, can you say hi and share a little bit about what you do at Laravel? So
Yeah.
that's kind of the intro, and you can give me a 5 second version, or you can run as long as you want, and
Okay.
then you've seen the topic list. But what I'd like to do for this season, because this season is all about kind of like introducing people, because last season it was me and Taylor all the time, right? And now it's
Mm-hmm.
like, who else is at Laravel? Who else is there to know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I want them to kind of know y'all's names and stories. And obviously, people know you more than they know some of the other folks at Laravel, but just like I've done with previous seasons, they might not know how you got into coding. They might not know what you were doing before you worked at Laravel. They might not know what projects you've done at Laravel, or
Gotcha.
what you is your streaming part of your work at Laravel. Is it not? So I just
Gotcha.
kind of want to like I that's where the story of joining Laravel comes from. So I will ask you the question of like, what was it like, what were you doing before Laravel, and what was the
Gotcha.
transitioning like? And then for you, we'll also talk about streaming.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, it's a couple questions I have, just because I know you and we've known each other for ages, and I'm curious to poke on some certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll also ask folks at Titan, like, hey, I'm going to be talking to Nuno. Kind of what questions do you have? Any of these questions, this while it's live for your folks, it's not live for my folks. So if you need to stop and re-say anything,
Thank you.
if you're like, I don't like how that went, we have editors that are going to work on things. Normally, we don't have to do any edits. Normally, we just do it live through. But if you're uncomfortable, or if you don't feel like a question worked or anything, that's totally fine.
Gotcha.
I'm going to
Looks
keep
good.
it usually under 40 minutes. I do a hard stop at 45.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's really everything. So I know you did a lot of prep, which is great, but don't ever feel like you have to go a certain direction. If you feel
Gotcha.
motivated and excited about a topic, run with it.
Mm-hmm.
This is more about kind of what's fun for you to share with people than it is,
Mm-hmm.
negotiating this a certain way. So,
Gotcha.
any questions or concerns before we get started?
Now it looks good. Let's go.
Okay.
I'm excited.
Let's do it. All right. Gonna hit record once you take your drink. Give us a little countdown, and then I'm gonna do my script, and it'll be right over to you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, welcome back to Laravel Podcast Season 7. I'm your host, Matt Stauffer, CEO of Titan. And this season, I'm going to be joined every episode by a member of the Laravel team. And today, I am talking while he streams it live on YouTube, I was going to say Twitch, to Nuno Maduro, software engineer at Laravel, currently working on Laravel Cloud. Nuno, can you say hi, share a little bit about what you do at Laravel, and also say your name for me because I feel like I still ever can't quite get the roll to R right. So can you say your name to the people and do a better job than I do?
Thank you so much for having me, Matt. So my name is Nuno Maduro. That's the way I pronounce it. And honestly, feels so good to be here. For those who don't know me, my name is, again, Nuno Maduro, Portuguese software engineer at Laravel. During the last 5 years, I have worked in the different projects within Laravel, including Forge, Vapor, and now Cloud. And besides Laravel, I also maintain my own open source projects, Past PHP, Laravel, Pint, and more.
Yeah, Pint, which is very interesting. We should talk about that Pint versus Pint, but we have to get to there eventually. So you are a prolific creator. You have created, and I want to talk about this. I have some questions for us a little bit later. But if somebody somehow did not know who you are prior to working at Laravel, can you tell us a little bit about what was your life like before you started working at Laravel? And then, you briefly mentioned, Forge and Cloud and everything like that. But like, kind of what has your journey of projects been like as you've been in? So kind of tell us like what's life before Laravel, what's life at Laravel, and then what are you up to today at Laravel?
Yeah, great question. So, before joining Laravel, I was a regular software engineer dude, literally. So I was working at a company doing a social media, actually, using PHP, and kind of my journey towards Laravel, not the Laravel company, but the Laravel ecosystem or the Laravel community was starting by literally listening to Laravel podcast season 3, a little bit of Laracas, and start following a little bit these very famous dudes within the Laravel ecosystem: Taylor Otwell, Matt Stauffer, Jeffrey Way, and many others. And I was a regular software engineer. I remember that I had to commute a lot back in the days. Like I was living in France, in Paris, and I had to commute like 1 hour, 2 hours a day to my office. That was a lot. So,
Yeah.
which in hindsight, it was a bad thing, but allowed me to actually have a lot of time to consume some of this content online, which kind of opened some of the doors to understand how rich software is. So, I remember equally starting some of my very first open source projects. We're talking about very small CLI tools, including Collision, Laravel Zero, and that is what got me to kind of join Laravel, because I had this small tooling out there, but also my very first contributions to open source was made back then as well. And in 2020, that was the day or the year I joined Laravel, and I still remember very well receiving the email from Taylor. I received your application. What do you think about joining Laravel? And I was a huge Laravel fanboy. The guy asked me like, what's your salary expectations? And I said, I don't care. Like literally, I'm joining, and no matter how much you pay me. And it was super fast joining Laravel on his side, but also on my side, and probably one of the happiest days on my life. I still cannot remember if I was the employee number 3 or 4, but we were little back then. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So it was Mohammed, and then probably James or Dries, and then it was me.
Yeah.
And that was in 2020, and it's been 5 years. It's crazy, like
Wow.
literally.
Wow. Okay, so you joined, were you, because I know that like at different times in Laravel's history, there's been different kind of organizations within, but you have always been on the paid products. You weren't like officially assigned to open source at Laravel at any point, were you?
Not really. So I think like within Laravel, at least back in the days, we were a small team, and we actually pivot between everything, including open source. So I
Okay.
remember like starting with Laravel Vapor, but then suddenly 3 months after I was doing Laravel Forge as well. So I was kind of doing both, but at the same time I was doing a bunch of open source as well, because one of very good things about actually working on Forge and Vapor at the time was I was actually able to identify pain points on the framework. So when I had an idea, I remember just pitching that to Taylor, and Taylor said, it's actually a good idea. Can you just do it on the framework itself? So we would
Yeah.
kind of pivot, not only me, but everyone on the team would pivot between all the projects, not only the paid ones, but
Yeah,
also
yeah.
the open source stories. Some of the, my famous contributions like Pint, but also within the framework itself, like the prunable trait or the password defaults and many others, came out of the need that I had on Vapor and Forge.
Yeah,
So we pivot a lot. Yeah.
that's very cool. Okay. This was not on the question list, but Pint. So, for anyone not familiar, Pint is a code formatting tool that's a layer that sits on top of PHP CS Fixer. And when you first released it, I believe it was Pint because it was like PHP lint.
Dude.
But then was there a beer associated early on and you didn't like, what was the story there?
Dude, it's just I'm gonna tell you. So I always like to do funny names when I'm building this kind of small CLI tooling, and kind of come with with a fancy, sexy name. I don't like something very professional. I like something super
Yeah.
simple, and I like to always play with P from PHP with something that already exists. So obviously we have like lint, for coding style formatting. And I've just said, okay, let's just remove the L, let's put a P, and this will be Pint, you know?
Yeah.
And then suddenly, I remember like announcing the project, and everyone was like laughing. Ba 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 ba, laughing, putting gifs of beers, and I was like, why people are like putting stuff about beers? And the most surprising story about this is that why people on the team didn't tell me this before. Because dude, it's so hilarious. I didn't even know that pint or pint,
Pint,
it's a beer. I didn't know that. So why did Taylor allow me to use that name? It's just so, dude, oh my God, it was so funny.
That's
So
a great name.
anyways,
I love it.
I feel like now people calling it pint. What do you call
Yeah.
it?
I call it Pint, but
Pint,
in the
yeah.
earliest days, I was like, I think that he might mean PHP lint. And then I don't remember exactly what I saw, but some aspect of what you were talking about, I was like, yeah. And the interesting thing is, in pint means beer in a British English very strongly. But
Oh,
outside of British English, like if we say grab a pint, the first thing we think of is a British person getting a beer. Like that's not
oh,
really how
gotcha.
we talk about it as much. So, but I mean, obviously there's British people on the team and British people using. So it's very interesting that like the cultural connotations. I remember when the new Laravel logo came out, somebody said the R in the Laravel looks like a G in Cyrillic, and so it's actually Lagavel, and it's just sort of like you can never know everything, you know. So okay, so you started, and because you started so early, it's not like you started in the structure that we have today with
Mm-hmm.
dozens and dozens and dozens of people, and you work on just one team. So now you're
Mm-hmm.
on the Laravel Cloud team. But at that point, did you find yourself quickly specializing on more front end or more back end or any particular subset of the work, or are you like, look, I was a full stack guy and I stayed a full stack guy? Kind of like, did you either start or hone into focus on a specific type of programming?
Ooh, I feel like definitely in the very early days we had to kind of know everything, because I remember like
Yeah.
doing a feature was about conceptualizing the feature from scratch, like literally
Hmm.
designing all the feature ourselves and how it will look like, coding the back end, coding the front end, writing an article, writing documentation,
Yeah.
publishing it out there with a video if you can.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
we
The whole
were
thing.
the whole thing. Like that's
Yeah.
one of the best things now on this new structure we have, is that we now actually have a real designer. Now
Uh-huh.
we actually have a real editor. Now we actually have
Yeah.
someone that understands UX, for example. So I would say that back in the days, we had to kind of be full stack in the sense that we need
Hmm.
to do the full story from the very first, Git checkout to the very last published on Twitter.
Yeah.
I always have been kind of, I wouldn't say good, but kind of okay on the back end. But front end is
Hmm.
definitely something I struggle with even today.
Yeah.
In designing, I didn't even talk to you about that. I'm like the worst person designing in the planet. So, but yeah, with time, you just start to getting better and better. I'm still not very good for sure, but we have way better right now on the team. People who actually know what they are doing. So much better now.
I both want to argue that I think you're very, very good at what you do, and also all of us pale in comparison to the sum of people you have in your team. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, we all look like normies when you've got folks like Jess and Tim and everything like that. So, but you are still a very capable programmer, and we need to set that as a baseline. So, okay, so one of the things I wanted to kind of talk to you about was because you are someone who's been writing Laravel for a very long time,
Mm-hmm.
you have been building packages for Laravel for a while.
Mm-hmm.
You have been sharing your thoughts about how to write Laravel. I was curious to hear over your journey of being a Laravel programmer, and it could be, over the last 5 years of working at Laravel, whatever else. Is there something that you believe today that you didn't 5 years ago, or something you were really strong about 5 years ago about how to write a good Laravel app? And what's the right way to write Laravel apps that today you don't believe anymore? Like what mindsets have shifted? And I'm going to give you a tiny example because I always love giving my friend Chris Fidel crap. Is he gave a conference talk about hexagonal architecture, and then later he was like, "That's way overblown," and people still kind of reference that conference talk in the post. And he's like, "I don't do that anymore." So do you have any things where you look at you 5 years ago and you're like, "Oh, that sweet summer child, what he didn't know," you know what I mean?
Dude, well, it's funny that you talk about Chris because, well, I wasn't at that point of hexagonal
Hmm.
pattern or whatever, but I was definitely all about writing clever code. Like everything
Uh-huh.
super complex, just trying to be the smartest person on that code
Yeah.
ever. Kind of also following all the rules on the books because I was just came out of university and I wanted to kind of implement
Hmm.
everything like it is on the books. But I think it's the same for you. Like the experience of actually developing real world stuff
Yeah.
brings you so much more, brings you a different mindset, basically.
Hmm.
These days, I'm much more about simplicity, consistency on top of it because for example, now we have this Laravel cloud team receiving people all the time. So something I always make sure is that all the code looks consistent. So if
Hmm.
someone is joining the team, they know exactly how to develop a new feature because all the other
Yeah.
features look the same. So I'm much more about consistency, simplicity, make it simple.
Yes.
In back in the days, I was so much into overcomplicated things overall, like trying
Yeah.
to prevent the end of the world and
Yep.
prevent that whatever we change the framework or we change the database. I'm not into that
Uh-huh.
kind of stuff anymore. I'm glad that I'm not, by the way. So yep.
For those who know me, I promise I didn't prep or plant this answer for Nuno. It's just literally he and I have gone through the same journey. It's just like you're just like I don't need to do it like that anymore. Um,
Yeah,
I just
sometimes
and
I like to give an
go ahead.
example, which is sometimes I feel like it's much more simpler changing like a very simple code that changing a code that is ready for everything because it's well, it's just again, it's the experience overall of maintaining real world stuff just brings you that. That's it.
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard this, but I have referenced this so many times. If you all have not listened to the talk min maxing, I think it's min maxing software development by Konstantin Kurdyshev, freaking brilliant. The simplest version of it, because this guy came in and he was like from the astronaut architect school, and
Hmm.
so he came to speak at Laracon EU. I'm not saying that, but like he was around a lot of people who were like that. He wasn't like hanging out in Laravel world, right? And he came and spoke at Laravel EU, and or Laracon EU. We're sitting here like, what is this? But he was brilliant, right? So like, what kind of a talk is he going to give?
Hmm.
And he gives this talk and this was in the early days where like a lot of people in PHP would really be pretty crappy towards Laravel, and so he comes in and he starts giving this talk, and it turned into this thing where he basically like said, we all want to do the best job we possibly can of planning for the future. And we're like, oh gosh, it's going to be another talk about how you need
Yeah,
to do this really heavy architecture, yada yada
exactly.
yada. And he's like, but nobody can tell the future, you can't plan for it, so instead you build these massively overcomplicated systems that are really difficult to change. And so he
Hmm.
says, optimize for change, build code that is as changeable as possible. And it turns out the changeable code is not this hyper complicated code like you're saying. The
Yeah,
changeable code is the simple code. So
exactly.
optimize for code that when you learn the information 6 years from now that you don't have today,
Hmm.
you can actually make the change there. So you just summed that up in like 3 words. What I just took 5 minutes to say, but still, I love it. And for all those of you who haven't listened, definitely check out that talk.
Hmm.
Um, so I wanted to say this earlier, and I just kind of slipped my brain for a second. But you mentioned about being full stack developers. So we were having a conversation on Twitter the other day, and it was the conversation in response to Brandik's post about like, should you use Livewire or should you use React?
Mm.
And one of the things I was saying is that there's different reasons for both. But React, if you have to pick one or the other as a new developer, React is going to make you more capable of joining larger teams where things are a little bit more segregated. And Livewire is going to make you more capable of shipping on your own right now. And you should learn both. But if you have to pick one as the first thing, that's my thought. And somebody said, yeah, but one back-end developer and one front-end developer is greater than the output of two full-stack developers. And they were of the opinion that like separated teams are always going to be better than full-stack developers. And it's interesting because you kind of talked about the fact that you're like, my responsibility set has, shrunk over time, and that's a good thing. But you didn't say so in a way that was demeaning towards full stack development. Do you, being on a team where you have less responsibilities than you did on day one, think there's anything wrong with those responsibilities? Like, what's your thought about like building teams where people are really segregated, doing just back end, just front end, just writing, versus teams where everybody does a little bit of everything?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I want to have a team that is able to still deliver a feature from back to the end. So I think, like for example, if you're working in the product and you have someone able to deliver a feature from the very first database make migration to the last click on the button, I think that's a positive thing to have. And I think today, for example, on the Laravel team, everyone on the Laravel cloud team is able to perform that way. I think that's important. I think,
Yeah.
I think, for example, having someone just doing the front end and someone just doing the back end can be sometimes blocking in the sense that, you have to wait for have the availability or a front end developer to help you out. And then you have to always have a specific feature that needs to be performed by two people, which is not always positive. However, I do think that it should hand on the designer, it should hand on the content creator, it should hand literally before the documentation, because I think like that's old new science, and I shouldn't be involved in. I shouldn't be doing that. If I want to, I can do. If I want to learn and be good at that, but I do think it's a totally different thing.
Yeah, 100% with you. Once again, did not feed Nuno this answer. He and I just happen to agree on this one. I love the idea of finding things that are outside of the world. Like, I think a project manager is a very helpful tool. I think writers and editors and designers and photographers and videographers are all very helpful folks. And I do think that sometimes you really do have to separate your teams. But personally, even if you do have to separate your team, I still would prefer a team that has a back-end developer and a front-end developer working on it together on a feature. And then the next team is another back-end developer and a front-end developer versus a team of front-end developers and a team of back-end developers. So, I was kind of curious whether you had landed in a place where you're like, yeah, full stack's not the ways to go. So, okay. I've taken you so many directions that were not the original questions we were gonna ask at the beginning.
It's
so
fine.
I'm gonna kind of come back to what we were planning to talk about. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your work outside of your work at Laravel for a little bit. So before we get into streaming and some of the projects you're working on right now, I had a question about some of your existing work. So you have created an incredible number of packages and an incredible number of very influential packages. And one of the things that I often hear you say is, well, I created that and blah, blah, blah maintains that. And it's not you. And so I think that's an intentional thing. And I kind of projected some thoughts onto you as to why you do it that way. But rather than kind of like ask leading questions, I just wanted to ask you, am I reading right that that's a thing you often do? You're going to have the idea, but you're not going to be the long-term maintainer. And if so, what motivates you and what are the benefits and the costs of working that way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do get that question sometimes, and I feel like the answer is, just to be clear, I like to co-create packages with other people. That's the way I like to put it. Because I feel like I'm a creator. I like to build stuff. But overall, I think one of the mistakes people do sometimes is that they create something and they want to have full ownership of the thing they created, to the point that sometimes they get bored and they are focused on other stuff and the project just dies. Okay?
Yeah.
So in my opinion, I think the balance of having other people joining me and making sure the project is successful, not only today, but will be successful over the years, is a much better balance. So, over the years, I actually have done this technique of co-creating stuff with other people. Those co-creators actually may join in the middle of the project, and I will still call them co-creators, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay? So some
Love
of the
that.
things I like to do is give ownership, but also give credits and make sure that people think that project is theirs and make sure they go to conferences and they, for example,
Represent it. Yeah.
exactly, they say that this is a project I have created with Nuno, and this is what it does, and it's and I like to as well make sure people do releases on those projects and they tweet from their accounts as their own
Yeah.
thing. So it's also part of it, like making sure people are getting enough credit as co-creators of that thing. So
Love it.
I think the balance, this balance, have particularly helped me with multiple projects in the past and continues to help me today. Larastan is one example, but also a past PHP. Multiple people have came in and came out over the years. I call them core team members, for example. The OpenAI client is a very good example where Sandro have joined the client. He is the co-creator. He have spoke already in multiple conferences. And also one thing that I don't mention enough, but there is actually people who have joined me in different projects and they actually got better job positions thanks to that. Because they got
Love that.
super into open source. Other people start noticing that they are doing releases about these projects and they contacting
Yeah.
them. So it's a win-win situation for everyone, not only for me, but for the people joining me in these journeys, but also for the ecosystem in general.
I love that. And I like how intentional and thoughtful you are about it. I was curious. One of the things that I've found is that if you start studying personality types, or if you start studying organizational, communication, or if you're ADHD and you're diagnosed as an adult or whatever, you start learning that like certain people do better in certain types of projects. And one of the delineations that often happens is some people really like starting things but have difficulty maintaining them. And some people really like being given an existing thing and kind of operating on it, but they're not the ones having the ideas in the first place. Do you find that you're more of a starter than a maintainer, or do you find that you're able to do both, but this is just a way that you like collaborating with people?
I actually thought about that a few months ago about myself, and I'm definitely a creator. So basically, it's not a creator, but I like to have challenge. Either being a creator or joining in the middle. But if there is no challenge, if I'm not learning, if I'm not doing something new, I get bored. That's it.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes I start this experience, like Pokio, for example. I don't know if you noticed, but I've started this new project called it Pokio. Blah blah blah. Anyways,
Yeah.
I like to basically be into stuff that I'm being challenged and I find exciting. Then
Yeah.
if I'm working on something that I have done in the past, I just get bored. That's it.
Yeah.
So if I were to answer one of those two options, I'm definitely the one. I like to be the creator and I like to start something from scratch. I like to be involved while there is challenge. And for example,
and
on Laravel Cloud, there is multiple challenges, from the very first start, but there is still challenge today. That's why I'm still on the team, and I will be continuing on the team until there is challenges to solve.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that, because I think a lot of people in open source who are that way leave a trail of broken packages behind them. And you have found a way not only to ensure that your packages continue to be maintained if they're not your front of mind, but also to pass benefit and shine onto other people through it. And I'm like, this is a model I really like. And I really hope people listen to this episode, because I want them to see this as a, hey, are you a creator with lots of ideas who doesn't like maintaining your project after a year? That's fine, because there's people who want to join a project like that who don't have the creation idea in the first place, and look at this wonderful model that Nuno has here. So very
Also
cool.
works, for example, not only with people, with companies, for example. I know a company that is currently using the API client a lot, like literally, like they have like 200 projects, all of them using the API client, the OpenAI API
OpenAI,
client. And they just contacted me, dude, do you mind if we get some level of permissions to actually start creating issues? And I would say, yeah, go ahead, man. I give you permissions. Just do whatever you want to. Just make sure before doing a big release or anything that sounds impactful, just send me an email. I will review it first, and that's it. So it doesn't have to be only people. It can also be companies that are willing to put some hours into it.
That's very cool. Okay, so it is time for us. We have two more sections left. I want to talk a little bit about your content creation journey, and then some things about specific projects, including Pokio, which I am aware of and I'm very curious to talk more about. So I have watched you go through various steps of your teaching, education, content creation journey. And it's looked a certain way to me. I've kind of watched it happen, but I always know that what you see like in public is never what the journey is actually like. So I wondered if you'd be willing to share kind of what was your journey like going from I'm a guy who happens to maybe put out a tweet every once in a while on the internet about what I'm building, create things, to streamer, because it wasn't just a one hop jump. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Can you talk a little bit about like what led you there? What was the process like? What was some interesting stuff that happened along the way?
And it's kind of fun that you have seen it all, right? Because you know me for more than 10 years at this point, probably. So you
Yep.
probably saw my first tweet ever, and you are now seeing
Yeah.
me where I am at the moment. Kind of crazy.
And I'm so
But
proud of you.
I wouldn't say that I'm a streamer though. Okay,
Okay.
I'm still trying to figure this out a little bit. I'm still doing it because I enjoy it, and I cannot promise you that we'll be like still streaming within 3 months. Okay,
Yeah.
I have this problem again of not being able to continue working on something when I'm not excited. So hopefully I will continue to be excited with streaming, and I will continue to do it. So my journey regarding streaming is, I always have been a fan of content, live content in general. Doesn't have to be always about programming. For example, I remember I still watch, for example, just people cooking on Twitch, or
Nice.
yeah, people just, but not like a real plate gourmet. I'm talking about regular cooking, like burgers and
Uh-huh.
hot dogs. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I always have been fan of that type of content, gaming, for example. And at the same time, I always knew that I always knew that I'm an extrovert and I would do well if I were to do some live content. So 6 months ago, I just said I'm gonna just start putting some consistency into this to see how it goes. And so far, it's been is working out. People are happy with my streams. I'm happy with streaming in general, which is probably one of the first things I wanted to know is that if I'm able to keep up with the consistency. And if people at home are listening to me to right now, I feel like if when you see streamers, you have no idea how the amount of work streaming like every 2 days involves.
Yeah.
And streaming is all about that consistency in being able to keep that pace. And I feel like doing one stream is easy, doing two streams is easy, doing 3 polished videos is easy, but like doing consistently is a whole new beast. So I'm still trying to discover if I can actually do this long term, which is maybe still not the case. There is a few things I'm discovering. For example, I cannot simply go out, get hammered with a few drinks because my voice the next day will be gone. That's just one example. But there's a few things you have to keep in mind if you want to do it consistently. So I'm still learning all of this to be able to understand if I'm potentially, within 5-10 years doing this full time. I'm just trying to understand if this is really something I want and this is really something I enjoy. And then once I have these questions, I probably will call myself a streamer. Until then, it will be just a hobby and something I'm having fun with.
Yeah. Well, those are great answers. And that actually kind of, I should have asked this foundational question. Is streaming a part of your job at Laravel, or is it just something you're doing on the side?
It's something I'm doing on the side.
Okay. So it's
yeah.
basically a second job. Because I've streamed once a week before, and it was exhausting. So
Yes,
you're streaming
so
much more than that.
but now I'm pacing myself way better than the very first month, for example. I have this problem of going all in on things. So the very first month, I went with streaming every single weekday and published a polished video every single weekday as well. And that was, if I would continue that pace, I would burn out. Absolutely sure.
Yeah.
So I stopped, and now I'm streaming 3 times a week, publishing shorts every day, and publishing polished videos when I have actual content, which is, I think it's good quality. So I'm pacing myself a little bit, but I'm doing outside my Laravel job. So, I have my regular job, and
lot.
then at night, I just turn on the camera, and that's fun.
My goodness. When you're creating smaller content like shorts and everything like that, are you trying as hard as you can to reuse streamed stuff, or is it just sort of like, they're two different ideas?
Absolutely. I want to set up like this train of content that starts from, okay, what do I actually need to have for this conference 2 months from now, for example? So I need Pokio, I need Pest 4, for example. So what I will do is try to create content, live streaming about these 2 projects. And while I kill them, like while I'll do them, I will be able to provide for my viewers at the same time. And when I finish a stream, potentially I will end up with good segments or very good, 4 minutes of content about a specific content. and that may end up being a polished video. But sometimes I end up with segments which are not worth of a polished video. So what I do is a 1 minute short. And that content actually is serving me very well on various different platforms like TikTok, because people like to have this very informational, short, 30 seconds video that just give them something new about programming. And I enjoy doing them a lot.
So you are working a full-time job at Laravel. You are live streaming, and then you're taking those live streams and cutting them into polished videos that end up in YouTube and Twitter, whatever else, and also shorts. And then you're being on top of which networks and how to post to different networks and what works on Instagram and what works on TikTok, all the while working on these open source projects. Do you have a life outside of this? Is this just, I mean, literally, is this just you wake up, you do this stuff, and you go to sleep?
The weekdays are busy. I won't lie to you.
Yeah.
What I do is that, I wake up at 10 a.m., for example. I work until like 3, then I go to the gym. Do gym, go back from gym, and then I work again for Laravel until dinner time. I have dinner with my wife. Then I go stream, and then I go do some editing if I have to. And it's like 1 a.m. at the moment already. And then I do gaming, because something I've noticed is that if I stream or do editing right before going to bed, I don't sleep, because my brain is like still at 3,000%, So I have
You
to
gotta cool it down.
Yeah. I do some medicine, which is video gaming with buddies. And that helps me out until
That's
2 a.m., 3 a.m. And weekdays are
Do it all
this
over
way.
again.
Yeah, but I don't have kids. It's just a little bit more simple. I have a cheap apartment, so there is not a lot of cleaning to do. So this is my weekdays, and weekends is a little bit more free. So on weekends, I may actually prepare like 5 shorts, for example, which allows me to kind of save some time during the week. But I also do stuff with family, with my wife. We go for dinner.
Yeah.
I date my wife.
Your wife says, "Get off that freaking computer and take me on a date."
Exactly.
That's cool. Well, I'm very impressed with what you're doing there, man. It's a lot, and you seem to be happy with it. You seem to be, I'm obviously doing an amazing job, so I love that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to some specific projects. So one of the things I asked when I asked my team is they were asking about the switch to React, and it's maybe not a switch, but I remember there was one project, and I don't remember which it was first, where they picked React, and then I think it was Cloud picked React, and then Nightwatch was like, well, Cloud's using React, we're going to try it. And so one of my team members asked, what have been some gotchas you ran into when you were working with React, or gotchas with Inertia when you're building Cloud? He said Nightwatch or Cloud, but I know that you were primarily involved in Cloud.
Yeah. For the record, I actually haven't been involved in Nightwatch at all. So I haven't done any Nightwatch before, and I didn't actually check the code yet from Nightwatch. So I will be probably as surprised as a regular customer and excited to try it out. But on Laravel Cloud, I indeed worked with React and Inertia. It's kind of funny because I still remember like typing the Laravel new, and one of the first things Laravel new gives you is like, what is the stack you use? So me and Taylor and Joe, we were discussing a little bit, okay, what is the stack we use for this? Like, we had so many questions, and this is one more. And I was very good at Livewire. No, I wouldn't say very good, but I can develop with Livewire because I have done Pinkery and many others. And there was Inertia, but Inertia had React, and I wasn't super familiar with React, but I have done Vue, but React has a much bigger ecosystem and blah, blah, blah. So we picked back then Inertia and React. And a gotcha that I remember from that time was, this was Inertia V1. So, and I don't know if you have, developed already with Inertia V2. And for me, you have not? Okay, so for me back then, coming from the Livewire experience, Inertia V1 with the React felt broken for me, because I was used to so many stuff, like prefetching and some of the very cool things you might find on Livewire. You take it as granted. And I remember changing to Inertia V1 with React, and was like, oh my God, I don't have all of this power on my fingertips right now. What I do? So there was a bunch of gotchas, like prefetching was missing. I remember as well, every time I would, when prefetching got implemented by Joe T, then there was bugs in between. So Joe T started Inertia V2. at that moment within Laravel.
Huh.
And obviously, a bunch of ideas of Inertia V2 came from Joe T as well. But I remember like giving me almost daily feedback about what is not working on Inertia V1 and what do I need for cloud. So he did like a bunch of things almost tailor-made for Laravel Cloud, which end up being
Very
on a
nice.
changelog of Inertia V2. And right now, I feel like being experienced with both Livewire and Inertia V2 with React, I feel like both frameworks are super powerful in the same way. And I am fast with both. They both have great features. Undeniably, React, in terms of the market, is big these days. Is undeniably big these days. So yeah, we are happy at the end with the peak Inertia V2 in React. But yeah, in the very early days, it wasn't as
Yeah.
good as it is right now.
Yeah, I love the answer to what was there some gotchas is go look at the V2 inertial launch list. Quite a few of those are the gotchas we ran into. It's like
Yeah, exactly. And Inertia V2 is, I think, it's make actually Inertia complete as a protocol between Laravel and React.
and that's very helpful in part because we were talking about inertia a lot over the years, being like, people would say, oh well, inertia is not a big deal because it doesn't get a lot of work, and it was sort of like, well, inertia is kind of feature complete. And then I think during that time period, there was a big no, it's not.
No,
There's
no.
work to be done there, and it was really cool to see it get this kind of like new breath of life. I didn't know how involved you were in that, and grateful to you and Joe T and everybody else who worked on that. And the funny thing is, because I'm CEO now, I don't get to code nearly as much as I did. People are like, "Oh, you're the CTO, you own a company." I was like, "Nah, man, I code every day. It's great." I'm the CEO now. I don't code every day anymore. And when I build things, unfortunately, I'm building usually with things I'm comfortable with. So I build with Livewire or maybe occasionally with something with Vue. But I remember just listening through the announcements for Inertia V2 and just being so excited about the opportunities because we use Inertia a ton at Titan. That's funny. I don't get to use Inertia, but we use Inertia. And so I get to watch the team's pain points or excitement points or whatever. And I'm like, I know that V2 has really been a big deal for us.
Yeah, definitely, I agree, and then definitely, just for the record, I do think like as a Livewire expert, let's say, coming to
Yes.
Inertia V1 with React, it felt broken almost because I was so used to all of the Livewire power, and I still feel like
Yeah.
Livewire. It's huge. Like I'm so productive with it these days as well. On Pinkery, for example, Pinkery is social media, still online these days, fully built with Livewire and Laravel, and I built the goddamn thing in 3 days because
Yeah.
Livewire brings you so much productivity, which is insane.
Yeah.
In terms of productivity between both stacks, I probably still feel that you are more productive with Livewire. You know what I mean? Because you
Yeah.
still have to
I
learn
do.
React and probably get familiar with everything within the React ecosystem. And it's a little bit more to maintain as well because you have more code to maintain.
Yeah.
But both are great frameworks. Yeah, that's TLDR.
Yeah. 100% with you. And I think that any conversation around these things requires nuance and it requires
Exactly.
some level of it depends, right?
Exactly.
But I love your approach of you're like, look, I can use both. I can be productive in both. I know the pros and cons of each. So,
Yep.
okay. So I know we're supposed to wrap soon, but I have one last thing I really wanted to make sure we talk about. And then, of course, after that, I'll see if there's anything that you wanted to talk about. But I wanted to talk about Pokio. So you have just recently been sharing on your social streams that you're working on this thing, and you've been streaming yourself working on the thing. So let's assume somebody's never seen one of your streams, doesn't know anything about Pokio. Tell me about it. What's the story? What's the motivation? What kind of prompted you to want to make it, and what does it do?
Yeah, so absolutely. So, as you may know, the Laracon US is coming, and I am one of the speakers, and I am supposed to speak about Past 4. Now, Past over the years accumulated a bunch of different features, which made probably Past very popular around there. But one of the things I have noticed is that for big projects, just like Laravel Cloud, Past some features in Past can become slow. Things like type coverage, architectural testing, they actually take a lot of time if you want to scan like a
Yeah.
big project.
Yeah.
And something I want to bring for Past 4 is a much performant, various performance engagements on those various features. Okay.
Okay.
So when I looked into that, I started looking into, okay, what do we have on the PHP ecosystem for parallel processing or asynchronous programming? These are all difficult in complicated terms, but they all mean the same. So I want to basically leverage all the CPUs I have on my Mac to make this faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I started looking at what we have at the moment, and I noticed that, okay, there is literally this framework, but requires me to change all of the internals of past, so this no. There is this particular library, but you have to have XYZ extensions installed. So I said, I cannot afford this because people are going to run past on Windows. So I cannot use this. So at some point I was like, holy shit, I will have to create my thing. That's it.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna do it myself. That's it.
exactly. So I thought about, I'm going to literally just open the live stream and just code this with my viewers with the Nuno Nation, how I call it. And I started the project from scratch. And I noticed I could actually do it. And within 2 streams, I have literally the project nearly complete with a logo, with README, published on packages. People can already try it out. So my goal now is, and just for the record, for those who don't actually understood, Pokio is literally this asynchronous library for PHP. So you do async await just like you would do in JavaScript, basically. So you do a sync, you can have a task inside that does whatever, and you have another async below, which does another task that does whatever. And those 2 tasks are going to be processed in parallel. That's what Pokio is about. And it has this syntax, which is async await, just like you would find in JavaScript. So if you came from JavaScript, this will be super kind of easy to use. So that's something I also want to be able to just, put this on existing team and people will know exactly what this syntax is about. They don't have to change a single line of code because it will just work. And it's got that simple to use. So anyways, fast forward, Pokio is already kind of almost complete. My next step will be polished teeny bits I have to do still, but do a YouTube video about the project and just prepare an announcement. And hopefully I will have some co-creators which will help me kind of making sure this project is successful over the years.
Who will keep it going, who will be excited about it, and who will see benefit in their own lives because they were part of doing this with you. I love this. That's a great vision.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Before we wrap for the day, and I cannot believe we're already at time because I'm like, there's so much more. But before we wrap, is there anything that you want to talk about? Anything you want to share? Anything you haven't gotten a chance to speak about, or a platform, or you want people to take a look at that we haven't covered today?
Not really. So I have probably to talk about just that Pokio is coming out in the next week or so. I don't know exactly when are you publishing this podcast, but I've heard it's the 26th May, I think. So by this exact moment, Pokio should be out already. Then I'm going to use Pokio to be the core new engine of Past 4, which is coming out this summer around Laracon US. And for Past 4, you can expect, as I already have said, performance improvements within the framework. So the things you are used to, like mutation testing, type coverage, code coverage, all of those features are going to become hopefully much faster. And that is one little thing I'm preparing that I'm not ready to say yet, but that is a brand new thing coming out for Past 4 that I think people are going to really enjoy it. If they are doing React and Inertia, they are going to love this as well.
Oh, okay. I was already excited, and you just got me even more excited. Okay, very cool. Very cool. Well, Nuno, thank you so much for hanging out. This was a great time. Hope we get to have you back on again at some time down the road in this season. And thanks for everything you do for our community, man.
Thank you so much for keeping this Laravel podcast one of the best podcasts out there. And it feels good after Laravel podcast season 3, which was kind of my beginnings in Laravel, and be here right now with you after 10 years feels truly overwhelming. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Now, you know what? We'll make sure that we link that in the show notes to anybody who has not got a chance to hear it. Because I'm like, I don't know if we recorded the video of those or not. But if we could get a video of like baby Nuno and today Nuno side by side. Oh my
God. Did you record it? I don't think you did.
I don't know if we did. Yeah, because they might have been just audio back then. We'll take a look. Anyway, thank you for rejoining us. And yeah, for the rest of you, we will see you all next time.
Thank you, Matt.
All right.
That was a good
so
one,
it'll
huh?
show a little. Yeah, it was great.
Oh my God, I'm sweating.
It's like you've done this before. I have a fan that lives right. Oh, well, sorry. I have a fan that lives right here because I get so hot in these freaking things. So.
Oh yeah.
Dude, you did great. That was a fantastic job.
Thank you, man. It's so cool to be here with you, man.
Oh, I love it. I am now. I'm really glad that you mentioned that because I'm really looking forward to just kind of like seeing what I should have done. If I was a good podcast host, I would have gone and re-listened to the whole thing before we recorded and like kind of given some throwback comparisons. But oh well, we'll have to do it next time.
I
So
think 10 years ago I had those glasses, which are probably this size. You
yes,
know,
you
like,
did. I absolutely know that.
yeah, big glasses. Oh my God.
Uh-huh. I love it. This is it. It just said it finished uploading, so I don't think we'll need anything else from you. But if we do, Kayla will reach out if she does all the transcription, the notes. So if she has any questions about any links or anything like that, so she'll send you a message. Otherwise, I think she's right that it'll come out on next Monday or next Tuesday. But any questions or concerns?
And not really, just say that everyone in the chat are saying that you are amazing and that you should be here with us once to do some pair programming maybe on Tuple. What do you think?
Oh, I am here for it, 100%. Just let me know.
What do
Oh
you
my
think,
God, I love
Chad?
that.
That was a good idea, right? Thank you so
I
much,
love
man.
it. Okay, thank you so much, Nuno.
All right,
I'll talk
dude.
to you
Catch
later,
you
my
next
friend.
time. Bye.
All right, see ya.
Oof, that was a good one, Chad. Oh my God. What did you thought about the interview? Thank you, thank you. Oh, we have so many people to say thank you. Oh my God. Megacorp CTO, how you doing? Oh my God. Emily Dev, how you doing? Emily Dev, thank you so much for the subscription. 5 months already. Appreciate your support. You are awesome. Oh my God. Crypto Smith, Shirking, MS, Shirking again, Florian, Smith, João Cavaco, how everyone is feeling today. Thank you so much for being on that side today with us, man. But yeah, an interview, I don't know. I mean, when I do an interview, it always works like this. So I always like to prepare, content about what I will speak about. Can I share this? I think I can share this. Let me show you. So literally every time I speak on interviews, I have this entire thing that I prepared in advance. So I just like to ask the interviewer what he will speak about, and I typically literally prepare every single answer for those for those questions. So it doesn't always go letter by letter because I just like to kind of have those bolty words so I don't remember. So I do remember, but I like to prepare the interview. Yep. I didn't read the chat. I couldn't because I had like these answers prepared on my ad, and I also was looking at Matt at the same time, so I wasn't able to read the chat. So I apologize. Adrian is saying, never seen you calm, nervous as you were at the start. What do you mean? Do you mean that I look nervous or do you mean that I look calm? Let me know. Shiko is saying, kill it, buddy. Thank you, man. Thank you. Diabel, what's up? How you doing? Rodizio, how you doing? Nice to see you. Pick and Flow is saying, that was really good. I enjoyed the beginning and the behind the scene part too. That's right, man. It's fun to see that. You probably noticed as well that we are using Riverside. That's actually great software if you want to record podcasts. I'm still a little bit sick, but I think I didn't cough that much, so that's good. Shiko is saying, already 6 months. Dude, thank you so much for the subscription. Tier 1, I really appreciate your support. You are awesome. Churkin is saying, calm like a cucumber. Is that actually a good thing or not a good thing? No, I wasn't reading the chat. I couldn't, really. I couldn't read the chat. Smith is saying, it looked like you are reading the chat because I said blink 2 times and you did. I wasn't intentional, dude. I didn't notice that. Dival is saying, I'm spending some gaming chill time and enjoying the podcast stream. That was a good one. Yep. Chat, thank you so much for being on that side. By the way, some news. Okay, some news. Friday, I'm literally going out with friends, so I won't be live streaming. That being said, I will compensate by doing a live stream either tomorrow or Saturday. Okay, I give you my word. So tomorrow or Saturday, we do have live stream here on the channel, and the content is yet to be determined. And do not forget, next week, Taylor Otwell will be here on the stream. I repeat, Taylor Otwell will be here on the stream. The true boss, the legend, the mighty Taylor Otwell will be here with us on stream. So if you guys have questions, is it next week? It might not be next week. Wait a second. It's next week. Yes, next week. Okay. So that's right, Taylor Otwell. So And I think we'll be on the day of his anniversary, which is even more insane. The guy is literally spending his anniversary here with us. So we may actually have to create a special channel on Discord so you guys put your questions and we can upvote them. That's actually a good idea, okay? Join the Discord right now so I can actually create a room for all of us and you guys can have, a bunch of questions and we can upvote them so people can literally make the questions that people want, okay? Sounds nice indeed. Chat, I do love you, but I'm exhausted, so I'm gonna chill. I'm gonna do some video gaming, and I catch you guys next Thursday, tomorrow or Saturday, okay? That being said, let's rate someone as usual. Who we have online, let me see. We have Maya Raider online, which is one of my favorite streamers, so I'm gonna rate her, all right? Catch you guys tomorrow or Saturday. Love you all, and peace out.